Hey guys, welcome to the Lego Build and Learn series where Lego builds and SolidWorks skills come together. My name's Chris, and in this lesson I'm going to show you how to do exploded views in your assemblies. We're going to start with the subassembly of the wheel, where I'll show you some of the basic skills, how to manipulate the exploded step settings to space things out further or change the order of steps, those kind of things. And I'll also talk about some tips and tricks as you're working through your exploded views, depending on what it is you're trying to communicate as your end result. For where we are right now with the off-road buggy, I'm not yet at the stage where I'm going to create any drawings of my parts or assemblies. So what I'm doing is creating my exploded view to be used for an animation. And that animation, you can see here, is pretty neat. My idea was to recreate the steps from the instruction manual to put the whole model together to showcase the amount of parts and detail that we've actually built throughout the whole project. I don't cover absolutely everything with exploded views, but if there's anything in particular you'd like to know that I haven't covered, please message me in the comments and I'll put something together for you. All right, let's get started with some exploded views. Now, to find your exploded view button that is here on the assembly toolbar, cross to the right and you can see exploded view. All right, let's get started with some exploded views. Now, to find your exploded view, it's not always the case. You can explode them in totally unrealistic ways, but the default when you select the part is it'll sort of go up front side using the basic axes X, Y, and Z that you can see already in the assembly. Let's start with looking at our subassembly, our wheel subassembly. We're going to learn about exploded views using this because it's just a smaller subassembly and actually a subassembly file. Now, the file itself has still within context. I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it as wheel subassembly. I'm just going to rename or reorder the file name. And the reason I'm doing this is so that I definitely do not lose any information as I create the exploded views in this subassembly here. It's always easier and probably better to learn the exploded view tools in a smaller assembly, so only with a couple of parts. So they're very easy to use. Let's start by clicking exploded view, and I'll just take you through the menu that you can see here. So at the top you have explode steps. Now when you create an exploded view, you create a number of steps, and that is all contained within one exploded view. You can have multiple exploded views in one file, but you can only have one active at a time. You can swap between them. You can even copy from one to another. Okay. Or you can duplicate views. So as we create steps, they'll go into that top box. As for add a step here, you get two options. You get the basic option on the left, which is a regular step, translate and rotate. So either move something out to one side or up or down, or rotate. Rotate is where you can select something to rotate around, and you can rotate around a part around that. Used for things like hinges. Okay, we could rotate a wheel, for instance. A few options there. The second option for steps is a radial step, and a radial step might be where you have something patterned around an axis, like let's say you have 3 or 4 of those things. If you select all 4, you can explode all of them at the same time, and they'll all go out the same, or they'll all go out in a direction from the center. So they're not all moving to the side, they're actually going to move out separately. Then you have the explode step name. You can change the names of the steps. I've never ever done that, but you can do it. This box here is where you select the items that you're exploding. And then below this, you control the direction, the distance, the rotation axis, and the rotation angle. You can do both at the same time, but it gets a bit complicated. And a bit messy. And then you have some options at the bottom. Auto space components. I've never done that again, but we might learn how to use that today. Select subassembly parts. We will use this later. It's not applicable for something like this where there's no subassembly actually within this file. Everything's just parts in this file. And then reuse explode, which you can see is disabled at the moment because we don't have anything to use it with. So let's start. And we're going to here consider the way that this was put together because we want to explode it in the same way. So when you are thinking about creating an exploded view, always think about what you're communicating. So if you're communicating the exploded view in a drawing, two-dimensional drawing that's static, then it doesn't matter what order the parts are exploded, so long as they're spaced in the right position so that they're viewable. Okay. However, where can be different and where the order matters is if you're going to do any animations. Right. There are animation tools, very basic within SolidWorks, but what they let you do is use, for instance, an exploded view that you've done, and it will move those parts out in the sequence that you've done in your exploded view tree here. So that is why we want to do this in an order that makes sense based on how we actually put together. Because I think the coolest thing that we'll get out of this, we might do drawings later in the project, but really at this point, we're just trying to learn how all the tools work. And it's going to be really cool to actually see a full assembly come together of the whole Lego off-road buggy in the way that it was built, going step by step by step. So we'll try and recreate that. Okay, so enough. Let's get into learning. I'm going to click one part. I'm going to click this red one, and it didn't work. I'm just going to make sure that the body I'm selecting here is this blue box on the left, and then I'm going to click that body, and now you can see the whole body is highlighted blue, and it's come up here in the feature tree, and it's identified that as the part. Okay, if I just drag that down, you can see that's the one. And then you can see the axis is the arrows here. And the round section lets you do like a rotation. We're not going to do that. In this case, all I want to do is click and drag this out like that. Done. Very easy. All right. Now, if I click on another part right now, let's say the wheel, it's going to add it to that step. I'm still editing this step. I haven't closed it off, all right, to create a new one. So anything else I click, it's going to add it in. And you can see it's adding in the selections here on the left. We can unselect those just by clicking on them again, and it will send them back. So we do that. What you want to do once you've finished a step is hit done, okay? And then you can add your next step. So then here, well, I can add these two parts. So the wheel, because remember, we probably put the wheel together before we slid it on here. So I can pull that out like this and press done, right? And now what we can see, we're just going to stop here and pause here with the exploded view. I can see I've got two steps, 1 and 2, okay? And if we just click on step 1, for instance here, if I go down through my tree, I can see that it's moved in this Z direction, 47 millimeters. Now, if I want to be really pedantic about it, I can change that dimension and typing in a number, and it's going to go exactly that dimension. In this case, 60. If I want to go to edit another step, then I have to press done to make sure that that is accepted. Then I can click on step 2, and I can say, okay, I want to move that 30, just to round that off. And that is done. Now let's press the tick here, because if we press the cross, it's going to delete these steps and basically cancel the exploded view. So press the tick, and now there's a few things you'll notice different that I just want to highlight. First, I can no longer edit any components. I can't select a component and press edit, okay? The reason for that is we are in an exploded view state, which means if we go to our configuration manager here, click on configurations, we can see we're in exploded view 1. Now, if I double click exploded view 1, that collapses those parts. I can then select the component and go edit components. So key thing to know, you can't edit components while you're in an exploded view. Now, to turn those exploded views on and off, there's a few ways of doing that. First is double click. Second is right click, explode. Right click, collapse. Third is back on the assembly in the feature tree. Right click, explode, right click, collapse. There's 3 ways getting it on and off. There's probably more. I'm not going to worry about that. So back here to our exploded view, a couple other tricks I want to show you. First, in my feature tree, the same as we have with parts, in an exploded view, you can actually suppress steps. You can also delete them individually. You can also use the rollback bar to roll up. So if I go to the rollback bar here and drag up, I can actually drag back before step 2. And if I want to try something else on step 1 here, I can right click and go suppress. And that suppresses step 1. So the only step happening is step 2. It's unsuppress. Now, I want to edit this feature. What I do is right click on the exploded view and press edit feature. And then it's going to bring me back into the exploded view mode where I can keep editing or adding more elements be exploded. All right, so let's get back into that exploded view. And I want to show you what the Auto Space Components tool does. To do that, I'm just going to roll back on those steps and I'm going to select everything. And I've got Auto Space Components selected and I'm going to leave that in the middle. I'm just going to drag and you can see what's happening. I'm going to hit back. So you've got some options as to the bounding box that's selected for the auto spacing. Okay, interesting. I was expecting once I would click these that they would all change again, but only one is changing. Maybe it's this one here. Look, I'm going to undo all of that. Oh, there's a different group there. Let's understand how this tool works. It's the group. Delete that group. Delete change. We just want to do these three components. So if I drag those, they're not doing anything. Let's undo that. Try again. Okay, so we've just done a couple of experiments here. Delete step 1 and 2, and I want to see how this chain plays out. So here, what I'm about to show you is, let's stop for a second to test this audio. It seems a bit jumpy. All right, so what I'm going to show you now is just a sample of an animated collapse. This is just automatic, but it's based on the order that we've got here. So when I click on that exploded view and right click, I can press animate collapse and it's going to animate the collapse and exploded view. This little animate controller will pop up. Now this is the default speed 1.0 and it's looping. Playback mode reciprocate. So it's going all the way out and coming back all the way back in. And we can see how the different steps are treated. So the individual parts or steps are going one at a time. This chain section that we did on the right, that's exploding all at once. Like those three components all moving in that same animation step. Now with this, you can also change, like you can slow it down or speed it up. Again, cool tools for recording some of the animations. I'm trying to think now how the best way to maybe present this project. I still think there's going to be a lot of manual moving, because I can see even here where this first step is happening. Now I can pause that animate controller and go to the next step. See between this step here and this step here, it's not just one movement. It's actually like the wheel going onto the hub, that goes onto this part, and then the red one comes over the end. So I'm not really happy with the current order of these features, so I'm gonna change that. So let's go into, again, the Explorer view. We can edit the feature and let's just start from scratch. So to do that, and then just delete the exploded view and start again. And this time I'm not going to use auto space components at all, even when I select multiple parts. So we'll just do it in the old school way. I'm going to click and drag apart. I'm not going to be pedantic about spacing. Typically when I'm doing exploded views for spacing, you just want to have it so that you can see clearly that part from whatever view you're communicating in your drawings or images. All right, you just don't want it to be like hidden away or inside another part where it should be. Now, sometimes that means you change the order of your explode. So by that, it means that I could actually explode these three at the same time, and then I could take this one out a bit further, or even these two. But then depending on that order, the steps, that's going to impact your animation. So we're going to go animate collapse. That goes in first, but then those two are moving together. It's not quite right. So let's edit that feature again and get this order right. So we're not going to do three parts at once like this. Let's delete that step. Let's keep that step. Let's delete this one. So what we will have on the next step is these two will come off, which means this one needs to be further away, which I can just drag and do. And that this one will be separated. That. And then if I look at those next steps there, I would say that this one, this gray one, is basically staying at the end, but we could, these two come off next. They're connected. This one come out from here and this one from here. Right. So now I just have to do some movements. And one thing that I often suggest is finding a particular view that you want for your exploded view, finding that, hitting spacebar, creating a new named view. I just usually go X or X1, 2, 3, 4, because then I can move around, but I can always go back to that view. And then I can look at my steps. So I'm saying that one's probably okay. This one needs to move a bit more. so that that has some space. This one needs to move here. Okay, so now everything's spaced out reasonably well. Let's just move that a tiny bit more. Okay, now before we do the animate, let's just roll through one by one to see how it looks. So that comes off, wheel and hub, tire. This element here comes out, that one. Now you can use, like you can in a feature tree, you can move parts up and down that feature tree. But in exploded steps, there is no hierarchy. So it doesn't matter if one's moving before the other. It's very easy to move things around. What this lets me do is put step 6 there and then step 9, and then I can do the remainder. So we're going to press OK. I'm going to then let's do an animate collapse and see how that looks. Nice. All right, we are done. Now, sometimes you'll notice after doing an exploded view, it looks like all your parts are now underdefined. They're not. Okay, if you usually hit rebuild or you try and move something, grab something, hit rebuild, those little underdefined signs they'll disappear. Just a little bug, nothing to worry about. Let's save that. And now, is that all the basics that we need? I haven't shown rotation, so let's show, but I think we'll show that in the main model. All right, we don't show that in this one here. So we've done a subassembly one. Now that exploded view that you create, that is saved with the assembly file. So that exploded view of the subassembly is in there. If we open that file again, it's still there. And we can access it actually through the general assembly, which we're in now. Now here's the interesting thing with this, or the tricky aspect to it. We've got so many parts, but we've got very few assemblies. Even like here, the rear wing, which is all mated together, it's not actually a sub-assembly. It's going to take a bit of thinking to work out how exactly to pull everything apart. Luckily though, this is a Lego product. I've got it right here in front of me, and most of it is kind of obvious. I suggest we'll just work our way from the bottom out. But very first, here's the other complicated part. Like what we just did for the wheel. I'll show you now how that interacts within this assembly, general assembly. So there's no exploded views here currently. If I press exploded view, I have the option now when I select down here, or see this tick box that says select subassembly parts. If I uncheck that and I select a subassembly, it's selecting the whole thing, right? And I could press, I could drag that out like this, and then I could press from subassembly. I'm just going to explode that, but that's not how it was built. It's not how it's built in the instructions. There's a couple of elements here that go on first, and then these go on, and then the wheel at the end. So I think we have to do them all in this file rather than just the sub-assemblies like I just showed you. So let's delete that, and let's delete that. We're going to start pretty fresh. And start fresh we did, and actually took 2 takes. You'll see as I start the time lapse that I'm about to show you that I had an exploded view already there. What I found was I was a bit rusty with some of these tools, and some of the steps didn't quite match the actual assembly instructions. The first time around, I didn't use them. I just kind of went off the position of parts. But the better approach was referring to the assembly instructions, starting from the end and going backwards, basically peeling apart the layers of the assembly, because my intention was to create an animation which put it all back together the other way. I don't go through the animation process here. The animation is all done in SolidWorks using the motion manager and the wizard that is within that motion manager. I will hopefully cover that in another episode. But yeah, enjoy the time lapse and let me know what you think of the finished product. And let's go. Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end. Really appreciate that. This has been the Lego Build and Learn series by Fully Defined. If the next video has been released, it'll be on the top link to your right. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe, and leave a comment below with what you'd like to see next. Your feedback is what motivates me to provide more content. See you in the next one.